from this really cool French Advaita teacher named John Klein. No filter, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, well, actually, all the time in recovery, they have these things called their traditions. In at least where I come from in the recovery program I'm in, and one of those traditions of the recovery program is that we don't affiliate or there's no outside. You don't talk about outside things. So in recovery, like the tradition is that the organization doesn't affiliate with corporations or government, but essentially the kind of rule is you don't talk about politics in recovery. So let's run this like a recovery meeting. This is dreaming. In Advaita Vedanta, they talk about dreaming. Yeah. This is a dreaming. So at night when you dream, there's seemingly a you who's a character dreaming, and often it's seen as a dream because you're in a very abstract situation. Let's say, yeah. Um, but there's things that point out how much of dreaming that this is. So in Advaita or whatever, they call this the waking dream. This is the waking dream. Then there's a dream while you're sleeping, obviously, but that one's taken to be a dream. The thing is, the waking dream is not taken to be a dream because it's presupposed that I, J, am a separate, real, independent thing. Yeah, but really, J is just a the character is like a makeup of time and space. Yeah. So there was J yesterday, and there will seemingly, hopefully, maybe be J tomorrow, which would put J into a now. And that story of the character J would give the idea or the sense of a reality being J as an independent thing walking through, yeah? And then the senses and the body, the perceptual system or whatever, gives a sense of space. So there's a sense of individuality here separate from a fence which is over there, let's say. Yeah. Now that's a perceptual thing from the sense of individuality here, putting that there. But the point of this is the waking dream. This is also considered a dreaming, and that really lands actually with me. The idea of dreaming, especially when you look at things like politics and the world, and how obscene it can get anywhere in the world. Really, it really points out that this is a dreaming. Yeah, that this is a dualistic experience based only on emptiness. So the brain is conditioned to be certain ways, and then there's certain bodies in this world which get extreme amounts of power, and their conditioning is beginning now to influence everybody's conditioning. Yeah, because there's nothing inherently independent or separate within this experience. This whole experience, both as an individual and society, is completely interdependent. There's nothing separate within this whole thing. Uh, yeah, man. But the dreaming thing is very cool because the dreaming thing, to me, it kind of lands like this. Like the character J, which was yesterday, the brain is based on memory, so it's basing everything on the past, like they say in the Course of Miracles, is placing the J here today into a certain place in time, yeah? But it does feel a lot like a dream. But this dream seems to have these breaks in it called sleep, whereas there's another dream, yeah? And the it gets quite funny. Hmm. But anyways, politics and governments really point out the insanity of dreaming. Insanity of dreaming. Now in Advaita Vedanta, this is not considered reality. The individual J is arising within the open space of reality. So it would be a part of reality, although it thinks it's all of reality. That's called the playing of God from the mental system, yeah? So this is not reality, meaning that this is a play of cause and effect or interdependence within the open space of reality, although I don't think so as far as the head is concerned. Yeah. J, the character, is completely convinced that it's an individual separate from other things, taking itself to be reality, and therefore everything else to be real. Real in that it has its own independent existence, separate from everything else. Yes? So the fence is taken to be completely separate and individual, its own reality separate from J, this reality, yes? But the fence's sense of independence and individuality is completely based on the idea that I'm an independent individual. But if that is unraveled, then also the fence is unraveled. Yeah. I don't know how I'm talking about this. Okay, let's go to this John Klein. Get on. See, the dreaming goes on, takes over. All right. Okay. The waking state, the dreaming state, and the state of the sleeper are superimpositions on pure listening. So there's the waking state, which is taking to be this state right now, when you're awake. Yeah. Now this, like we were just saying, is considered the awake dream. Dreaming in that it has no reality. Yeah? It has no independent reality of its own. So this is a dream just like the night dream, except there's time in this dream. So there was a J, there is a J, and there will be a J. And because of that, J has a timeline. Yeah. So the waking state, then the dreaming state. Now when he says the dreaming state there, he's not talking about the waking dream, he's talking about the one when you're asleep. And the state of the sleeper, which in one of the Upanishads, maybe the Chandogya Upanishad, I forget what one, but that would be called deep sleep. So the waking, the dreaming, like the night dreaming, and the state of the sleeper are superimpositions on pure listening. So they are superimposed on pure listening the same way that a movie is imposed onto a screen. So that comes back to like the Ramana thing. Your nature is the screen. Now the movie of this life, the J-ness, is superimposed like an image or a movie on that screen. Now the screen doesn't change, but the images change. Yes? Now the images on the screen, the character of J, takes itself to be the screen. This is the challenge, or like the conundrum, let's say. The character takes itself not to be a character. The character takes itself to be reality. Therefore, the character is in the movie, but you're not the character. So, the waking, the dreaming, and the sleep states are all superimposed on open listening, or pure listening, whatever you want to call it. Listening, yeah? The same way that a movie is played on a screen. Now you, as a person, are part of the movie. That is not the screen. What you and I are as the open listening, that is the screen. Now the screen is always untouched by what is played or moves through the screen. You see? So, he says, waking, dreaming, sleeper are superimpositions on the pure listening, which has no reference to a listener or something heard. So the pure listening, let's call it open awareness or pure listening or whatever, open listening, that has no reference to a listener nor something heard. So when there's something heard, a sound, there's a sense that there's a hearer of that. Meaning the head says me. Yes? The head says me. So obviously the sound, the head saying I'm the hearer, and then all the ideas about that sound are completely interdependent. So there's an event, there's sound, yes? Then the brain perceives that, has a bunch of opinions, volition, whatever. The skandhas go on that. And then there's consciousness, meaning I'm the hearer of that sound. Now he's saying the superimpositions on pure listening, which has no reference to a listener and something heard. All states appear in listening. No reference to a listener and something heard. So there's the heard, there's the hearing, and then there's the hearer. But the heard and the hearer are completely interdependent. They're not individual in any way. So the sound of the bird comes from the bird. Now the bird is taken to be individual because of the senses. But really a bird is just made up of a bunch of non-bird parts, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say. Air moves through that bird, which creates a sound. That sound would be like the event or the effect of the cause of bird. These ears hear that sound. Then this brain starts going. It starts to explain that sound, perceive that sound, and then is presented the I'm the hearer of that sound. But there is no individual hearer. There's no thing which is an individual hearer. It's an idea. And that idea of me, the hearer, is caused by the sound. You see? So it's not self-arising. It's cause and effect. So the waking state, the dream state, and the state of the sleeper are superimpositions on pure listening, which has no reference to a listening or to something heard. So you cannot locate listening. Yeah? There's a sense of a hearer or a person in this body. That's called the sense of individuality. That's happening. If you try to deny that, that is a sense of individuality trying to deny a sense of individuality, which is hilarious, really. So, yeah, that's okay. So there is a sense of individuality here, placing separate from over there, yeah? But because there's a sense, does that present a fact of an individual? It's like because there's a sound being heard, the head has ideas about that sound, and then there's the sense that I am hearing that sound. Does that sense prove the fact that there's a hearer? That is really the investigation of listening. Who is listening? Who is hearing that sound? As we talk about all the time, the answer is always I or me. Is that me a thing? Now that me is heard. So the idea of a listener, which is superimposed on pure listening hears that listener all day. It's not like it's going to become more pure or better at open listening. It's open listening. Yeah. What you are is already done. The screen thing is a done deal, pretty much. So it's beautiful in many ways because you can hear your head all day trying to get out of itself. You can hear it saying things about itself. This is one of the things, like when I talk about listening, a lot of people just say, yeah, listening, that's great, like as an idea or whatever. But the thing is, the reason it can save your life is because when your head is talking about how worthless you are, or less than or something, if you have that little tick in the brain, which is my big one, yeah? Or my big one was always everything's your fault. Yeah? So when the head is saying that, based on events, now it's no different than the sound, hearing, hearer being presented. There's an event, let's say in life, day-to-day life, then the brain goes off because the event caused, the cause made an effect, which is the mental system, and it's going back to its conditioned response, which is whatever that event was is your fault. Now that, if I'm stuck to the idea of me being an independent thing, I am going to grab on to that thought every time. I can't see past that thought because it's a core belief about the character. So really, the brain thinks it's uh, the brain has a belief about itself. That's everything its fault. Yeah. Now, if that idea or that belief is my belief, which it is, because there is a sense of individuality, that belief is my belief. But am I the my? You see? And when you really sit and really hear that there's no thing called my, that my comes and goes, that belief doesn't land anywhere because it used to always land on my or me, yeah? And I was completely identified with me as a body. So now that belief grabs onto the me, or let's say the me grabs onto the belief, yeah? And then I go with the belief, which is drunk usually, which is depressed and drunk. I did it again, let's say. You didn't do anything again. Your brain is doing the same thing over and over and over again because it's conditioned. You're identifying with it as it being yours. But you can hear the me thought. And what is being heard is not what is hearing. Yes? So obviously, the pure listening, there's something being superimposed on that. Like an image, when you wake up in the morning and your eyes open, there's something getting superimposed, which is the thought me. And it's presenting itself as a permanent individual thing. It's presenting itself as a permanent individual thing the same way that it does at night when you dream. When you're in the dream at night, it's taken to be real until you wake up and then it goes, oh, it's unreal. That wasn't real, that was a dream. Well, guess what? This is also a dream right now. This is the same thing, except your head is presenting this as not a dream. It's like you woke up from the night dream and then you came into reality. I am reality, yes? But Advaita Vedanta is saying, no. The I thought is not reality because there is no thing called I. The pure listening can hear that I always from before it. Yes. Ah. So obviously the me, which is taking itself to be a permanent thing as a body, which, by the way, is really the identification as self as the body, and it is being taken to be a permanent thing because look at the world and everything people are trying to do to not have the body change. It's getting more obscene by the day as science so called improves. Uh, it's getting crazier by the day. Like I saw this thing on Netflix. There's a guy there who's trying to live forever. Yeah. Now that would be based on the that would be based on that the body's not going to change, which is an obscene idea, because there is no individual body in the first place. It can only change. Yeah, it can only change. Now you can accept that or not accept that, but it doesn't change the fact that whatever you're aware of or whatever is superimposed on pure listening is going to change because it has no reality of its own. The body does not have its own reality. It's not an individual, independent thing from the core of itself, yeah? And I'm not talking about the type of interdependence which creates relational trauma. That's a different thing. So as a body here, there is a fence over there. We're not denying that. As this body here, through these senses in this body, there is a chair there, away from me, yeah, in space. We are not denying that. Non-duality is just saying, is that where you start? Or is that reality? Yeah? This is a thing that a lot of people get caught in, I feel. They feel that non-duality is denying what's happening. Now, if you're denying something, an event, let's say, like the event that there's a body here and a fence there, what is denying that? That would be the sense of self, which would put you further in to the individuality and the suffering of being identified with that. This is not denying that there's a sense of a body here and a fence there. It's just looking, is that reality? Is that where this whole thing starts? Is that fence completely individual from everything else? And is this body completely individual from everything else? That would be based on the idea that I am an individual. So not denying the sense of individuality, but is what you are an individual? And what John Klein is saying is the you, who you're taking yourself to be, is superimposed on pure listening. The head, the mental system that's saying, I am the listener, that is being heard because it's superimposed on something from before it. Which would be what you are. Not as an idea, not as a body with a name or even a concept, but as what you are. So the whole point is, well, not the whole point, but this is how this kind of landed, was on those core belief things. Because I couldn't stop drinking, and all of that drinking was based usually on depression. So the system would get very depressed, and then I would go on a rip. So when I got into recovery, the focus came off the alcohol pretty quick within like a couple months, and then it went straight to the depression. And then there was all kinds of tactics to try to get out of that, which failed. Which thankfully, this thing came along, both listening and the message of non-duality, and it looked right at the root. So rather than trying to alter the core beliefs and ideas, it looked right at whose beliefs are those. And if the answer is always my, which is always an idea, the search really became, is there a my? Is that an independent individual thing separate from everything else? Yes? Because if there is an individual my, then the thought that everything is my fault is valid. But if there's not, then that thought would be based on a false belief that there is an independent individual thing called J, and everything is that thing's fault. Yeah? And from that point of view, you don't see that the belief itself is conditioned. It's conditioned because even the mental movements, the perceptions, the ideas, and the beliefs, those are all formulated by something. They didn't just pop out of nowhereness. Yes, there were events that caused those beliefs, usually early in life, and that gets revealed to you eventually. That there is no thing, there's no part of Janus which is original. It's not like I came up with this part and it's really great. Yeah. Usually anything, when things go smooth, it's because it's in spite of me. I'm out of the way usually. That's when things go smooth. As soon as I get involved, there's a sense that I'm getting involved, but really what's getting involved is the conditioning. Yeah, and that conditioning is off. It's off. And you might be able to relate to that. It's like things go well when my head is not involved. If I don't touch this life, it goes well. As soon as I start playing with it, then things get very chunky. And then I get weird, yeah? Relationally, whatever. Things get uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable is not a good spot for an alcoholic. So those beliefs, those beliefs are based on the sense of me. There is a sense of me, but is that what I am? So Jean Klein, of course, is saying that sense of what you are, that is also superimposed on something. It's the screen, yeah? What you are is the screen, but what you're taking yourself to be is part of the movie. The only thing is the movie, the character in the movie, the Jayness, is taking itself to be the screen. So the more that Jay tries to get out and become the screen, the more immersed it becomes in the movie. So really the only move is a negation. That's why listening is so beautiful. Whatever's heard, you don't touch that, because that's not what you are. That is the superimposition. That's the appearance of cause and effect and conditioning playing itself out. Sense, under the sense that you're doing it. Under the sense that you are the one who is doing that. Yeah. That's why the question always comes back to who is hearing it? I am hearing the head. Well, you're also hearing the I. You're also hearing the inquiry, yeah? So the inquiry itself gets put down pretty quick as well. Yeah. So the waking, dream, and deep sleep are all superimpositions on pure listening. And then the second part of that, which is really beautiful, superimpositions on listening, which has no reference to a listener and something heard. So the whole dance, the drama of a listener and what's heard, yeah, that whole interplay. Or you could take it to any sense, really. The eyes and what is seen, the nose and what is smelt, the body and what is touched, the mouth and what is tasted. All of those dances, that is all superimposed on open listening, because it's not independent. So there's sound, and then there's the sense of a listener. There's sight, and there's sense of a seer. And who's listening? I am. Who's seeing? I am. So it always comes back to that I. The I, me, my, or the ego cage, I think they say in the Bhagavad Gita, at least in one translation. uh, the I, me, my, it always comes back to that, yeah? That is superimposed on open listening. The easiest way, I feel, you can hear it. You can hear your head say me. So there you go. There's something listening to that. So you can put that down as what you are, yeah? And then the brain keeps going. The I, me, my thought keeps going. The eyes see things, and then the head goes, I'm the seer. Because it's a mechanism. You don't stop it. You're not denying it. We're just pointing it out so you stop grabbing onto it, yeah? You hear a sound, then your head goes, I'm the hearer. Before it even goes, I'm the hearer, there's a bunch of opinions about that sound. Good sound, bad sound, tied to these things. Yeah, what Bodhidharma has something on being tied to form. To see form but not be corrupted by form, or to hear sound but not be corrupted by sound, is liberation. To hear sound but not be corrupted by sound. To hear sound but not be wavered by the idea of good, bad, neutral of that sound. Now, is the brain saying good, bad, and neutral of a sound? Yes, it is. It is. So how can you not be corrupted by the brain making that perceptual movement, or making the volitional movement, or whatever movement it's going to make? Yeah? You see that you're not the one who is having that idea, because there is no one having those ideas. There is no independent individual who's hearing the sound. There's the presentation, of the idea of the individual listener, but is that what you are? Yeah. So to not be tied to sound would be to not be tied to the perception of sound, which would be not to be tied to being the listener of that sound. So when the idea of listener, I, me, is being presented, you don't grab onto that because you see that there is no I, me. Deep inside, that listening goes from the ears inward and then way down somewhere in your torso, and then it opens up to like everywhereness, let's say. So that can start with the sound of a bird or the sound of music or something, like the drone stuff we do here. The listening can start there, but really where the value is when your head starts presenting insane ideas. That's where the strength of the listening lands. So you don't leave the idea that the listener is being presented, but there isn't one. So who's depressed? I'm depressed. Who's anxious? I'm anxious. Whose fault is everything? Mine. I, me, my. I, me, my. I, me, my. My. All the contents of what's being heard is based on that idea of the listener. But you can hear the I, me, my, which would negate it as what you are. It's beautiful. Listening's like its own direct negation. It just does it right away. It's like whatever you can hear, that's not what you are. Okay, well, oh, I can hear it. Your head goes, if I don't meditate, I'm going to die. You can hear that. Your head goes, I'm worthless. I can hear all that. That's not what you are, yeah? That's not what you are. So if you have faith in Advaita or the message of not two, it would be that you are not two. So if there's an idea, then there's a sense of being the one who hears that idea. That's two. There's an idea, and then there's me, the listener to the idea. That's two. This is the message of not two. That's it. It's not even the message of one. It's just the negation of what comes up as two-ness. Not a denial of what comes up as two-ness. If it's a denial, then you're there being the one who's denying, which is a huge hole into two-ness. That's good. If you want to bypass this life, don't listen to the message of Advaita Vedanta. If the goal is to try to get out of this life, then don't come here for sure. Because the listening thing opens the door to the whole life, which is beautiful. But if there's the intention that I, through spiritual practice, am going to get out of this life, now I've had this intention, that puts you way, way further, not into life, but into your conditioned distortion of life. So this is not a denial of life. Yeah? Denial and negation are different things. A negation would be seeing that you're not something which you're taking yourself to be, but not going, I'm not that and I hate it as well, and I'm going to try to destroy it, because guess what's trying to do that? What you're not. So you're just identifying more. All of this is heard, yeah? This is the beauty, to me, about Chan Buddhism. Let's say just Buddhism, Advaita, and music, is that they're very honest, and recovery is the same way. They're very, very honest. If you're not being honest, then you're going to get caught. And you're probably going to get caught in discomfort. So, if you're not being honest, that the I thought or the me thought is being heard, and you're still grabbing onto the head, grabbing onto it, you're in trouble, essentially. Now, that's my experience, because I've gotten caught in that before. And in recovery, they would call that pride or self-righteousness, meaning that I'm right and you're wrong. Yeah? Now, my head I only know this experience here. It's soaked in that self-righteousness. So if I'm identified as the me who's before that or owns those ideas, I am here and you are there, and that's a very hard duality. And actually, the positioning I've noticed in myself is that the self-righteousness is utilized by the system to try to put me above. But it only wants to put me above other people because its real belief is that I'm below everybody. So the thing is, I tried to change all of that and tried to see equanimity everywhere. That failed, obviously, because the head is not conditioned to see that way. But my head wants me to be smarter and better than, because behind that, it really believes that I'm less and worse than. And neither option is comfortable, by the way. Being better than is no better than being worse than. It's all nonsense, yeah? But the point of the listening is you can hear your head do all those moves if you're being honest. If you're being honest. Mm. Yeah. All right, if there's any questions or anything, please feel free to write them in the little chat. I haven't looked at this. Tom from DC. Oh, Varsha. Ah. Sam. Alam Andre. I don't know if Sam's still here, but you know that text, Sam? Elam Andre. Elam Andre was one of the main texts that Ramana Maharshi told Annamalai Swami to read. Oh, Elam Andre is all is one. This is a very famous Indian. It's short. It's really short. ELLAM. Oh, I forget. Maybe I type it out. ELLAM. Andre. Alam Andre. If you go on to go to like the Ramana Maharshi website from Theravada, the ashram has a website. You'll be able to find it. Yeah, you'll be able to find it. Hmm. No, it's not in Tamil. It is in Tamil, but it's translated into English. Alam Andre, yeah. It's from the Law of One. Oh, look it up. The Law of One. This is the thing. If there's a one, that would give the idea of two, yeah? The idea of one it sits you in a spot. So like, see, the idea of one is kind of like the idea of J in a way. If you're stuck to the idea of one, then you're stuck to the idea of other. That's why in Advaita they say not two, or one without a second. But not two is the only move. Not two. So it's a negation, yeah? But you don't land anywhere, which is the same as listening, by the way. You never become open listening. What you are is already open listening. You only hear what you're not, or what you're taking yourself to be. So the idea, okay, one would have me here and then separate there, yeah? But not two is just a negation. Oh, whatever pops up is two, not this, not this, not that, not that. So whatever's being heard is not what is hearing. Yeah. There's not a day that comes when you go, I am that thing. Because as soon as the head says, I am that, what's saying that is of two-ness. Yeah? So it just gets negated. But the idea, I am that, which is used in the Dvaita Vedanta, as one of the Mahavakyas, I think, I am that, is it's the only way to produce in language something. But not two is just not two. So whatever pops up, sound, listener, that's two. So you're not the sound, you're not the listener. Yeah. And then you just keep your both hands open, as Huang Po would say. You keep not touching what comes up as two-ness. You can only land in not two. Uh huh. Hmm. I like thinking there's a cycle of coming together and then separations. So all is one, but we don't perceive it as that most of the time. You never perceive all is one. Any perception is only of two-ness. Any perception is only of subject object. There, there can't be a perception of oneness. As it's like in Chan, oneness is not the end. If there's a perception of oneness, there's still a sense of individuality being grasped onto. Uh, if there's a sense of oneness, there's something grabbing onto that sense. So it's like they would say there's still like, I don't know how else to say that. Cycle of coming together and then separation. That's like spanda from Kashmir Shaivism in a way, that pulsing, yeah? But the main point is you don't perceive you don't perceive it as going in and out of oneness most of the time. You never perceive oneness. Yeah? You might perceive oneness actually, but that's not the end, let's say. That's not what you are, because there's a sense of you there perceiving that oneness. Oneness is not, I don't know. It's definitely a step back, but then there's you perceiving oneness. Yes? Which is in many ways a hole to get caught in. Because if there's a you who perceives oneness, then there's an idea that most people don't perceive oneness. And now there's a separation. Now I'm the one who perceives oneness, and you are the lower beings who don't perceive oneness. What is that but the thing we were just talking about, yeah? So it's not the space of no mind as they would talk about in Chan. Uh-huh. The idea all is one is that nothing is existent without the open space of pure listening, let's say. Uh, Nothing exists. So, nothing in the manifest world, the body and world, has an independent existence. Science knows that too. That's not a secret, yeah? There is no independent existence in individual things. But all of it only exists because of the open space in which it exists in. Now, what you are is not space, but that's the best word you can use to try to put a word on the wordless, let's say. Therefore, all is of that space. Yeah? Therefore, all is one, because there's nothing independent of the open space on which it arises. Mm-hmm. So it's like Shiva would be the open space, Shakti would be the manifest world or the energy within that space. Now that seems like a duality, but sitting in it, it's very obvious that the fence does not exist without the space that pervades the fence. So there's nothing separate from that space. Things pop up, the body pops up for however many years it's going to exist, and then it evaporates. But the space or the screen on which the movie plays does not come and go. Now, the body or the movie can only exist because of the screen. If there's no screen, there's no movie. Hmm. So all is one because everything relies completely on the screenness. Screenness. Even the idea of screen depends on the movie. So you can't get out of it in a way, yeah. Therefore, all is one. I don't know. I don't know. But I just point out the thing about being the one who perceives oneness because that's still being stuck. Yeah? Because if you're the one who perceives oneness, you're also the one who perceives the core belief that you're worthless. And you're still tied to that core belief if there's the you who's perceiving it. That's the whole point. That's really why we're here. That's why we're talking about listening and inquiry. Is because that's what's landed best. Yeah? So I'm just here to share it. That's it, really. So if you're tied to one idea, you're tied to all ideas. And if you're tied to the idea of oneness, then you're tied to all ideas. And the point is, you're not the idea haver. So that's really the investigation. Who is the one that perceives oneness? I is still heard. Uh-huh. I is still heard. So if you're still I'm the one who perceives oneness. When your head goes, I'm worthless, you're going to perceive that as bad. Now that perception is going to happen. But if you're tied to the me who's before it, you're going with that idea. You're not staying and listening anymore. Now you're in the movie again. And the movie's not so bad, by the way. But if you're completely tied to the movie, it gets really wild, for sure. Uh-huh. So the thing to me that really lands is not two. It's just a negation. There's no acquisition here. You don't get anything at the end of this. It's not like I became something else. No. No. There's a losing of faith in duality. And in that, there's a lot of relief. Because the pure listening's always there. It's like from where you've never left, as they would say, gate gate peragate. You go to the other side of the river from where you've never left, because you've always been that open listening. You've always been that. So that's always where you're going to land. You can't go anywhere else, you know? Ah. Yeah. Okay. If there's any other questions, please fire them in the chat. Otherwise, we will say goodbye for today. So why don't we do that?